High-altitude level bombing keeps your aircraft out of AAA, but also makes it vulnerable to SAMs and enemy aircraft. As your altitude increases, accuracy decreases, making this method generally more appropriate for large structures. Recommended altitudes are between 18,000 and 24,000 feet. This allows you plenty of room to bunt your nose over and designate the target. Fly toward the target at your chosen ingress altitude. Speed should be about 300 knots. Once you start to track the target visually, adjust your ingress heading to directly overfly the target. When you can clearly make out the target, it's time to designate. Shift right bracket activates CCIP auto or manual mode. Set it to auto mode. Push the nose over, positioning the reticle on the target, and press the trigger, return, or enter key. The target designator diamond will then appear on your aim point. Level your aircraft, keeping the velocity vector on the azimuth steering line, or ASL. Continue tracking ahead until the release cue moves down to the velocity vector and you hear the click of the bomb release. Dive bombing is used when level bombing will not provide the accuracy required or the target is too small to be seen at high altitude. For this example, we'll use a 30-degree dive, which should suit most situations. Ingress for the 30-degree dive is 10,000 feet at 300 knots. Use radar altitude to give proper terrain avoidance during the delivery. Use a waypoint or a map mode stabilized cue or even a radar lock on the target to give you distance to the target. Switch to manual CCIP mode. As you hit 3.5 miles to the target, you'll begin your dive. Roll the aircraft inverted and pull back until your velocity vector is 30 degrees nose down, then roll back upright, continuing 30 degrees nose down. Maneuver your aircraft to position the CCIP cross directly on the target. Release your weapons and smoothly pull back for a 3G pull-up. Try to go no lower than 2,500 feet. Remain aware of the pull-up cue while in your dive. If the breakaway X appears, immediately initiate a 4G pull-up to avoid the ground. The pop is designed to bring your Hornet in under the radar of SAMs and possibly other aircraft. In the target area, you climb and then dive to give a very accurate delivery and avoid AAA. This method is well suited for a high-threat environment, but once you drop your bombs, get back to the deck and egress expeditiously. The choice between the high pop and low pop depends on the ease of locating and designating your target. Ingress at 500 feet AGL. It is important to have a waypoint or radar contact on the target during your attack run, since you'll be popping up at a predetermined range without the target in sight. Speed should be about 400 knots. At 3.5 miles, execute a 4G pull-up to 45 degrees nose high. Hold 45 degrees nose high until you hit 10,000 feet AGL. At this point, roll inverted and execute a 4G pull-up until you're about 45 degrees nose down. Roll upright, designate your target, release weapons, and execute a 2 to 3G pull-up to clear the target. You'll use the high pop for targets having a heavy AAA coverage. Follow the same ingress procedure. At 3.5 miles, execute a 4G pull-up to 70 degrees nose high and apply at least stage 3 afterburner. At 20,000 feet, reverse your turn, reduce back to military power, and pull your nose to 70 degrees nose low. Roll upright and look at the target. The target should be designated no lower than 16,000 feet, and you should fly no lower than 10,000 feet. Designate the target, release, and execute a 2 to 3G pull-up to clear the AAA. There are two types of low-altitude deliveries depending on whether low-drag or high-drag ordnance is selected. High-drag ordnance is used for low-altitude deliveries since target-to-aircraft clearances can be dangerously low. A low-altitude run-in can present severe target acquisition problems. Don't linger or climb to find the target. Refuel and come back if you have to. Vertically significant structures such as dams or power plants are good targets for the low-altitude delivery. Execute a low-altitude, high-drag delivery. Ingress low, somewhere around 500 feet AGL. As you close on the target, increase speed to 500 knots. Speed is critical for frag avoidance. At 3 miles from the target, climb to about 1,000 feet AGL, level out, look for the target, and designate. Go no lower than 500 feet AGL before releasing. If you're using low-drag weapons for the low-altitude delivery, you'll need to generate more separation between your aircraft and the bombs. At 3 miles from the target, pull 15 degrees nose up and look for 2,000 feet AGL. At 2,000 feet, reverse your pull and head 5 to 10 degrees nose low, looking for the target. Roll upright and designate it. Hold 10 degrees nose down until you reach 1,000 feet or the bombs are off the aircraft. The loft bombing ingress is the same as the low-altitude run. Speed and early target lineup are key. Only vertically developed targets are viable for loft targeting, since you must designate early and at low altitude. Ingress to about 3 miles from your target at 500 feet and 500 knots. Once you've designated the target, pull 30 degrees nose up and wait for the bomb release. Once the bombs release, either pull through the vertical to complete a half loop heading back out the way you came, or slice left or right, turning hard and heading down to the deck to egress the same way you came in. This method is good for targets that cannot be flown over. The loft is not as accurate as other methods and can result in fairly significant errors. Harm targeting mode does not actually use radar, but displays an image fed to it by the harm missile itself. This makes it completely passive. It intercepts ground-based radar signals and presents a display of radar-emitting sources. It's designed specifically to support the launch of HARM, or high-speed anti-radiation missile, against those sites detected. The contact must be ground-based, it must have a radar which is turned on, and it must not be masked by the terrain. HARM mode is used to detect and destroy enemy radar sites, including those associated with AAA and SAM. The HARM display will only function if a HARM missile is loaded on the aircraft. The HARM display is located in the left DDI. Select HARM mode with the U key. In the upper left corner of the HARM display is the station location of the currently selected HARM. The symbol located in the center of the azimuth and elevation grid is representative of the nose of your aircraft, meaning the display is not top-down but in bore sight, providing display in elevation versus azimuth rather than elevation versus range. As ground-based radar signals are received, they are displayed in the DDI according to the type of signal emitted. The symbology is identical to that of the radar warning receiver. And A represents AAA, S represents SAMs, etc. Select a target by cycling through the contacts with Control /. Once you receive an in-range cue, launch the HARM using your trigger, return, or enter key.